Tonight, an emotional reunion for two sisters incarcerated for decades as they face another legal battle in their fight to be released.
Oh my God, sister.
Also, tensions rise at Regina City Hall after two councilors file an unusual lawsuit. Plus, some Iranians in Saskatchewan say they won't be cheering for their home country in the FIFA World Cup.
I see them playing under a flag that do not support us anymore.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, November 24th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. Two Soto sisters are continuing to fight their decades of incarceration. Both were convicted in the death of a Kamsack farmer in the 1990s. Now their defense is battling against a publication ban requested for their upcoming bail hearing. As Dane Patterson reports, today's court appearance also marked an emotional reunion.
Oh my God.
Odelia and Nerissa Cusance last saw each other at their late father's funeral about 18 years ago. Today, before walking into the Court of King's bench in Yorkton, they held each other.
I love you. Yeah. Oh my God.
Odelia arrived with her family to court in Yorkton this morning. Before her sister showed up, Odelia told us it wasn't the situation they hoped to meet in.
Tuesday night we talked because she's leaving to come here, and you know what? She says, "Sister, I love you." And she says, "Oh, I can't wait, can't wait to see." And she says, we always tell her to keep strong, and she can't wait to see my daughters and stuff, And we always tell each other we love her. We don't say goodbye, we just say later, because we'll see each other again eventually.
The sisters have been pleading their innocence since they were convicted of killing the Kamsack farmer Anthony Dolph in 1994. Their lawyer submitted an application for a federal review of their file. The federal justice minister ordered the review in case there may have been a miscarriage of justice. The women are hoping they can be released on bail while that review is in the works. Local supporters, including Ontario Senator Kim Pate and Congress of Aboriginal Peoples Vice Chief Kim Bowden, are hoping the same. Last week they called on the Saskatchewan government to support the sisters' bail hearing application and pull the request for publication ban on the hearing. Members of their home community, Kisakus First Nation, are also hoping to see them released.
It's been difficult on the family, and a lot of her friends and family members, like a lot of us that grew up with her, she's just in a flash she was gone, and she could have had a very productive life if this hadn't happened. So I really want to see justice.
The two sat in court today on what was supposed to be a consideration of their conditional release. But a couple of weeks ago, the Crown requested that publication ban on evidence from the hearing, sparking this hearing. It says that would protect the fairness of any future trials involving the sisters, and added that so far, the media coverage of the sisters has been favorable. But the defense argued those are not reasons to request a publication ban, and that the publication ban would only protect the Crown from having to make its controversial stance. CBC and APTN are also fighting the publication ban. Dane Patterson, CBC News, Yorkton.
The Saskatchewan NDP says ERs in this province and the healthcare staff that work in them are being pushed to their limits. Now, the province says relief is coming in the form of Filipino nurse recruits. The Saskatchewan government says more than 70 nurses from the Philippines are ready to come work in the province. In fact, some have already landed and should be working in healthcare facilities in the new year. In the meantime, the province is working its way through over 3,000 applications from healthcare workers from that country.
What we've been doing is working with the Philippine government over the summer to be able to improve our bridging program, which is what that process is called. It used to be up to 9 months in Saskatchewan of that bridging program. We've reduced that down to 3 months, and a lot of the bridging program actually happens back in the Philippines to be able to make sure when the individuals get here, they can get integrated into our system. Now, those 3 months are just for them to understand the Canadian healthcare system and the Saskatchewan, because every healthcare system around the world has its uniqueness.
Merriman says the Health Ministry has partnered with Saskatchewan's Filipino community to help incoming healthcare workers get set up.
We get them, connected with the community, and as our committee would be, we are always going to be communicating with them, and having everything from planning to their stay to what their needs and wants. We'll always be there for them.
While NDP opposition leader Carla Beck says recruitment is important, she says she wants the government to also focus on the healthcare employees already here. Beck wants the Ministry of Health to consult directly with those professionals who are struggling with packed ERs and overtime requirements. Meanwhile, federal government employees who enter private land without the owner's consent could be met with a stiff penalty. They'll now face fines of up to $200,000. It's because of an amendment to Saskatchewan's anti-trespassing law. The legislation is in response to a complaint the province received in August. A person claimed federal employees trespassed on their land near Pence when taking water samples. Environment Canada says the employees were getting samples near a highway. At the time, Saskatchewan's cabinet approved an order in council tweaking the province's Trespassing Act to include federal employees. Today's amendment formalizes that federal employees must abide by the Trespassing Act. Well, it has been a wild week for news at Regina City Council. As we told you last night, 2 councilors have now filed a lawsuit attempting to force the city's manager to include a motion to end homelessness in the city's preliminary budget. It's a rare move that has shocked just about everyone who pays attention to City Council. And here to unpack what it all means is the CBC's Alexander Kwan. Now, Alexander, this all revolves, of course, around homelessness. So how did this all get started?
So back in June, City Council actually voted to direct city administration to include a full costing of what it would take to end homelessness throughout the city. And that would be included in the 2023 budget. When that document came out this week, it had estimates on how much that process would cost, and it's actually a very significant investment. It's expected that it would require a 22% mill rate increase, which translates to about $487 in additional taxes for the average homeowner. That's actually why city administration did not include it in their recommended budget. They believed it was just too expensive to include in their recommendation. But that triggered Councillor Dan LeBlanc to file a lawsuit on behalf of Councillor Andrew Stevens and another concerned resident. They believe that this is an example of city administration kind of running through the process of what is supposed to actually happen.
Mayor Sandra Masters now did not take this lawsuit very well. Alex, tell us more about that.
Yes, Masters is normally very agreeable. She's very open to taking as many questions as possible from media, but on Tuesday after council, she only took questions for about 15 minutes before she declared that she was done and left and walked away from the mic. So she's not very happy with this process at all. She's actually described it as disgusting and implied that the lawsuit is somehow sexist. For context, City Manager Nikki Anderson is actually the first city manager who is a woman in Regina's history, and she actually just started the position at the beginning of this month. Masters told media yesterday that Anderson is already receiving harassment because of the lawsuit. Now, in an interview with CBC's Stephanie Leinenager this morning, Masters doubled down on her comments.
This is an incredibly poor way to treat a brand new employee when 2 of the folks that she reports to decide to sue her as opposed to actually. If they were so confident that this is the will of council, they should have brought it back to council
Masters has also said the dispute shocked just about everybody on council and that she believes the majority of council is actually backing Anderson in this dispute.
All right, so what happens going forward now?
Well, this lawsuit is going to happen very quickly. It's all in the hopes of getting a decision by December 14th, which is when council is set to start finalizing the 2023 budget. Now, LeBlanc has told me that he believes the motion to end homelessness needs to be in the budget because that way it would require councillors to cast a vote on the subject. But in the meantime, council has to continue as normal, even if there is a legal battle brewing in the background.
It is a little awkward. It's like the worst family dinner you've ever been to.
The application is actually set to be heard at the Court of King's Bench on Tuesday. Ethan?
All right, thank you very much, Alexander. That's the CBC's Alexander Kwan in our Regina newsroom tonight. Students in Sask Polytech's dental program now have a new high-tech training center. This is the newly renovated Dental Health Center at the Regina campus. Students here train to become dental assistants and hygienists. The renovation was a collaboration between the school and the government, as well as the Saskatchewan Dental Association. The clinic now meets new infection prevention protocols implemented since the COVID-19 pandemic.
The renovation has been monumental for the dental programs. My clients feel more comfortable discussing health information and receiving care in enclosed rooms. My learning is less disruptive when I get to practice my skills in a more independent and closed environment. I also feel better prepared for the transition into private practice when I graduate because the new clinic resembles a state-of-the-art dental clinic like the ones I hope to work in.
The new facility can accommodate up to 64 students in the clinic at one time. The total project cost was about $2.4 million. Well, the World Cup in Qatar is in full swing, and Iran is one of the teams playing their second game tomorrow. But some Iranians in Saskatchewan don't feel like cheering for their national team. CBC's Teresa Kleem has the story.
29-year-old Mariam loves soccer, and watching the game is her favorite hobby. The U of S student is originally from Iran, and her home country's national soccer team, Team Melli, has always been dear to Mariam's heart. But this World Cup is different.
This year, although it's about the same players, but I see them playing under a flag that do not support us anymore.
Anti-government protests in Iran started after the death of Mahsa Amini. The young woman was arrested by morality police in September for allegedly improperly wearing her hijab. Now Mariam and others in Saskatchewan are worried about the people in that country.
People in Iran, they're protesting. They are struggling, they're fighting for freedom.
Mariam wants Iran's soccer players to show support for the people protesting back home. On Monday, the national team declined to sing its anthem ahead of the match with England. But Mariam says that's not enough. She wants the team to pull out of the tournament. She and Amir are not the only soccer fans refusing to cheer for Team Melli at this World Cup.
We have new priorities, which are not, the first one is not the national team right now, unless they stand with our people and support them.
These three soccer fans continue to love the sport, but say speaking out about human rights violations in their home country is more important right now.
It's very painful. It's very painful to see that your team is there and you're not going to support them.
Team Iran is facing Wales in Qatar on Friday. But as much as it pains her, Mariam will not be watching. Teresa Kleem, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Well, nice weather this week means it's a good time for Optimist Hill in Saskatoon to open. The toboggan, ski and snowboard spot opens tomorrow, and the first 250 people that day will get free lift tickets and hot chocolate. Now, will that snow be nice and compact, or will there be some fresh fluff to ride down the hill on? Heather Morrison has the full forecast when we come back.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. 2022 model clearout is on now.
Well, really nothing to complain about in our weather today, but all good things must come to an end. Heather Morrison is here now with our forecast. Say it ain't so, Heather.
Yes, unfortunately, Ethan, it is true. We are just nearing the end of these mild temperatures, but hey, we got one last hurrah before we head into the chilly temperatures. First, let's take a look at what's going on in the sky. So we did have a little bit of snow just touching that northernmost part of the province today, but that's moving on this evening. And watch Alberta there. You can see there is a system that is developing over Alberta, but lucky us, it's going to dissipate before it moves over our province over the next couple days. Now let's get to those temperatures. So we have got here some really nice wake up temperatures tomorrow morning. This is well above normal for this time of year. As you can see, we're going to be waking up already well into the plus digits. Look at Leader at 9, Val-Marie at 7. So some really nice temperatures there, but that's not as nice as it's going to get. These are the spots that I have got my eye on tomorrow that might break some records. You can see in Regina, the high is supposed to be 10 degrees. The record there is 11.3. Take a look at Yorkton with a high of 12. The record is 14.4. Moosomin really does look like it's going to break the record today or tomorrow for high temperature with a predicted high of 10, and the record is at 7.9. So those are the areas that we've been keeping an eye on. The bad news with this is that with these nice temperatures, especially in the southern region, we're also getting a lot of wind. Take a look at the wind that's picking up. Those are the wind gusts that are picking up overnight tonight. Tomorrow morning, waking up, you can see those wind gusts well into the 40s. They're predicting a very strong wind for the southern part of the province. And then sort of as you head more north, those winds calm down a little bit. So what's going on and what's causing this little bit of temperature here? Well, we've got the upper atmosphere moving through. And as you can see through Friday, we're sitting into that really nice, those yellows, those light greens, but that's pushing on. So this is what I'm talking about even when I'm saying this is our last hurrah. You can see those nice warm colors. They're moving away as we head into the weekend, and there we go. We get into a trough in the upper atmosphere. So that's going to bring us into a little bit more seasonal, still above normal for this time of year for the weekend. And then it's Monday, Tuesday. That's when we're going to start really seeing the drop. Let's take a look now at our 7-day forecast for Regina. So as I said, look at that. We've got that 10-degree high for tomorrow, but we've got a lot of wind with it as well. So southwest wind with 34 kilometer per hour wind speeds, and then that 50 kilometer per hour wind gust. Now it does improve for the next couple days as we get those mild temperatures, but then that snow and those cold temperatures arriving on the next week here. Now in Saskatoon, a little not quite as nice, so we got a high of +6, but hey, I'm not going to complain, and our wind is a lot less as well. As you head into the next week there, you see we got some flurries and some cold temperatures on our way. So tomorrow, make sure no matter where you are, soak it up, but you do want to make sure you're wearing a wind jacket as well.
Sounds good. Thanks very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Under what torments inwardly I groan, while they adore me on the throne of hell, with diadem and scepter high advanced.
Students and faculty at the University of Regina, along with members of Regina Little Theatre, are creating their own page in history. They're reading all 12 books of John Milton's famous Paradise Lost poetry, one book each hour. They started at 8 a.m. this morning and they wrap up at 8 tonight. Talk about one for the books. We're back after the break. Welcome back. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland gave the starkest view yet about the impact of self-styled freedom convoys on this country. Freeland gave her remarks on this, the second last day of the inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act. She suggested Canada would have looked weak as an ally to Ukraine had the Russian invasion started while Ottawa was still occupied. She also said there were serious economic pressures from the U.S. triggered by the border blockades. Rafi Boudjikanian has the latest.
I would have preferred not to have had to do this. Like other cabinet ministers, Chrystia Freeland referred to the Emergencies Act as a measure of last resort, but said Ottawa was not all that was on her mind as she contemplated it. Russia was on the brink of invading Ukraine, and she was concerned about Canada looking weak as an ally if the capital's streets were occupied.
NATO troops were put on alert at the end of January, and then I think the U.S. took this extraordinary step of declassifying its intelligence about Russia's plans in early February.
Then there were the conversations about issues closer to home. Days before the act was invoked, this text between Freeland and a staffer at Justin Trudeau's office revealing the Prime Minister had spoken to Joe Biden. The U.S. President reportedly talking about rumored convoys against the Super Bowl and D.C. Commission counsel also relayed something Freeland heard during a meeting with the heads of big banks after one returned from a trip south of the border.
We were being called a quote-unquote joke by people. I had one investor say, "I won't invest another red cent in your banana republic in Canada."
That was a heart-stopping quote for me.
She said she knew some American politicians were eager to implement protectionist policies at any sign of weakness in Canadian supply chains. So much so, one lawyer representing an anti-public health mandate group challenged her.
And I put it to you, Minister, that the government felt that they had to do something about these protests, not because of threats of serious violence, but because your government was completely overwhelmed and you were under a tremendous amount of pressure from the United States.
I absolutely disagree with that.
Tomorrow, the Commission is set to hear the last of a long list of witnesses, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau himself. Then begins the wait until February, when it is supposed to report on whether his government was justified in invoking the act. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
We're in for another mild night here in the prairies. Let's take a look at what Regina is going to be seeing overnight. So as you can see, a low, we're going to hit about -1 overnight. Very mild wind right now. So with the wind chill, it's only going to feel like -6. We got some cloud cover, waking up to mainly sunny skies, starting at 0, and then we're going to start building throughout the day. You can see by noon, they're expecting us to hit 9 degrees, but that wind is coming up with gusts up to 50. In Saskatoon, a little not quite as nice as Regina. We're going to be waking up to a high of +2, partly cloudy, and then by noon sitting at a 5 degrees, but we have a lot less wind to deal with here up in Saskatoon. So a fairly nice day across the province if you can get over the wind tomorrow.
All right, well, keeping that can of hairspray next to me. Thanks, Heather. Finally tonight, sound the alarm. Bugles are discontinued, putting traditional holiday snack mixes at risk. The company confirmed online that the salty, crunchy, cone-shaped chip, yes, is discontinued in Canada. It is a staple in many seasonal nuts and bolts mixes. A store in Edmonton, though, got its hand on a box of 16 plain ones from the States. But customers who were hungry for them had to buy $25 worth of merchandise before they could buy a bag. And they sold out in hours.
They said they've been desperately searching for them and that I've saved Christmas. I'm hoping they bring them back. They did do this 3 years ago, and then they discontinued them, and then they brought them back. So I guess we will wait and see.
All the bags at this store are now gone, except for nacho flavor. But the store is trying to get more, and you may get lucky and find some Bugles if stores in your area have bags left over from previous stock. But not for me, though. Never really been a fan of those snacks. Anyway, that's it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to our CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Glenn, Reed, and Heather will be back with more local news and weather at 11. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great night.